Your retirement depends on you having a good withdrawal strategy. Now, there are many different types out there, but one element that you should be aware of are taxes. When it comes to taxes and the withdrawal strategy, this will either have you paying more in taxes or even paying less in taxes just because of how you are taking money out of your account. That is what we want to be talking about today, the withdrawal strategies that you can implement into your own personal retirement plan in order to improve your overall wealth. Hey, it's Nathan Krampe, and I create these videos because you are very ambitious when it comes to your overall wealth plan. Well, today's strategy, looking at different types of withdrawal strategies that can benefit you when we talk about taxes, is one of those elements. Click subscribe and you can actually be looking at the other elements that will be coming and pertaining to your overall wealth. There are many different withdrawal strategies, but we are going to be talking about one specific today called the dynamic withdrawal strategy. And really what this does is use optimal withdrawal levels. And it's a new methodology, really, that is coming out more and more for those of you who are near retirement or if you are in retirement. Now, what this allows you to do is take from the various different accounts and really take into account the twists and turns that happen with your income in your retirement years. Okay, a dynamic withdrawal strategy allows you to take elements of your retirement income from many different areas, and it helps you plan for the unexpected issues that may surface. Now, this withdrawal strategy is something that can result in more income actually in the future if done appropriately. Now, if you have a separate target for each different phase of your retirement, this strategy actually adds value because it exploits the differences of the tax brackets and the patterns of your marginal tax rates in retirement. Now, all that to be said is that really what we do is we take a look at the taxation from Social Security and from your other different accounts like your pensions and your 401ks and anywhere that could be taxable. We also take a look at your income-based Medicare premiums, and this is known as your IRMAA. Well, all of those are, if we can be planning for, can help you to improve your overall plan for income in the future. Now, this strategy is recommended for you as a retiree, but what it does is it delays Social Security as well. That's one element here. And if you have the ability to delay your Social Security, and we've talked at length about this, that it may actually be to your benefit to do so because you can have more money that you're taking out of Social Security in the future. Well, if we have the ability to do that and wait until we are 70 to start taking Social Security, well, then we can actually make Roth conversions. And again, I've talked a lot about Roth conversions in some of the prior videos, so go back and check those out. Well, Roth conversions are a necessity when it comes to actually making sure that we are putting money into the different tax buckets appropriately. And if we do that, then we can actually look into your retirement years and your household's marginal tax rate and take a look at your brackets. Now, the marginal tax rate paid on a Roth conversion may be anywhere between 0 to 22%, let's say. Well, then once we add in Social Security, your household might now have additional withdrawals from not only Social Security, but also your IRA accounts, 401k accounts, what we call your tax deferred accounts. And what we want to do then is try to keep those in your 15% bracket. Now, it is scheduled to rise back in 2026, so tax brackets are scheduled to change, but we can take advantage of them today. And we can use a tax-free Roth account for withdrawals in the future to help meet some of your spending needs. That's one of the hearts of this strategy. And it adds value because in the early years, when we do those Roth conversions, it helps make your marginal tax brackets in the future really stay between that 0 and 22% range and allows you to avoid additional withdrawals in that tax deferred bucket in the future. Now again, when they revert back in 2026, we're going to have a higher level of tax, and that is actually something that we want to avoid. This is actually going to help you to do that. So those marginal tax rates may go as high as over 46% because of the taxation on your Social Security benefits, the other IRA benefits you have. And if we do an early years Roth conversion, so earlier in your retirement, in your 60s, that'll help reduce your lifetime IRMAA. Those are the income Medicare adjustments and all the different details behind there, as well as help reduce the taxation on your overall withdrawals. Okay, a lot going on here. Completely understand. So this is really going against conventional wisdom when we talk about where your money is supposed to come from. A lot of times we say we're going to take from certain different buckets, and we'll utilize and kind of postpone taking from the IRA accounts later on and try to postpone them as much as possible. But if we do that, then we may have a high tax bracket unnecessarily. Well, let's take a look at some of the other types of withdrawal strategies out there, and then we're going to come back to the dynamic withdrawal strategy and how it can benefit you, and just talk through some cases and some of the ways in which you can start to utilize this just by understanding how others have doing that. Let's compare some of the approaches. Well, we are going to start with 5 different approaches that we have. Now there is going to be the conventional wisdom approach. Now in this strategy, we withdraw for spending on the accounts basically at the time. Now it comes back down to the taxable accounts first, tax deferred accounts second, and then those tax exempt accounts third. That's been the conventional wisdom up to today for most retirees in most tax brackets. Well, we've really made some changes along the way then, and we've taken a look at some other strategies as well. The proportional strategy. Well, this takes a look at how we can be taking a look at the income in the early years, create a ratio of taxable, tax deferred, and tax exempt or tax free income. Now I've talked a lot about the proportional one as well, and that is a great tool and actually is going to get you most of the way there. Now we're talking most of the way is maybe like a 75% chance, because when we take a look at those different brackets, we can start to withdraw on an equal level across the board on a yearly basis, and that will ultimately help to lower your taxes. Well, there's other ways to look at this as well. Another strategy is the multiple count strategy using the average tax rates. Now here we withdraw from both the taxable accounts and the tax deferred accounts to cover your spending. Now assuming an average tax rate every year, this system really finds its best average rate and uses it every year to determine the right amount of the withdrawals from each account. That is also a very unique strategy and can get us most of the way there. Well, one last strategy that we want to talk about is the multiple accounts to tax bracket strategy. Now this is really starting to get into the details a little bit more, but this withdrawal strategy from tax deferred accounts and other accounts each year are used to cover spending. And when we are looking at just hitting that spending for what we need to be taking out for just your overall expenses on a monthly basis, we can start using and choosing other accounts when we need to go above and beyond that. Say for, well, maybe a vacation, things like that. So we can hit those chosen tax brackets and we can keep within different elements based upon your spending. Well, then we have the optimal withdrawal level approach as well. And we use a multi-phase withdrawal strategy. And each phase adopts a different withdrawal strategy and a different target threshold. In addition, it prevents a rebalancing approach and uses the asset location strategy, which can be significant to your overall accounts. Now again, these are all different types of scenarios, and I really haven't explained them, I really haven't talked through them at all, but there are different strategies that are out there. Now I want to contrast that with the dynamic strategy approach that we're going to be talking about more and more, and that is really what we're going to be spending the rest of our time on today. Now in doing this, I want to set us up correctly. We are going to be talking about 2 different what we call scenarios that I have come up with here, and I want to help you to see yourself in one of these scenarios. So here we assume a household rebalancing of the accounts to meet their target allocations every single year. We calculate the extra values that is available for rebalancing and the household levels of assets that they have. So this is just a fancy way of saying that we're just going to calculate every year of where you're at. Your asset, the location, so different areas in tax strategies that we are already employing, and then we're going to look at the Roth accounts as well. And what we want to do then is attain just a portfolio that is a target asset allocation for the different assets that are in there, and use that as part of knowing which ones we want to take pre-tax, which ones are going to be going into the tax-exempt, tax-free buckets, as well as your taxable. So we take all that, so that's all of the assets we have. Then we calculate the strategy behind this, so the total value of how much you're going to be spending in your lifetime. And we require after-tax dollars here. So this is the planning that we go, and it comes back down to a lot of the goal planning that we can be doing. And we can put together a pretty good estimate as to how much money you're going to spend in your lifetime. And if we do that on an after-tax basis, we need to figure out where we're going to be for funds that you want to transfer to your heirs, whether you have funds that are transferring to you, and then where all the remaining tax deferred accounts are going to be. And we can start using that to reduce your overall level of taxes just by knowing those details. So if we know where your spending is going to be and how much you're going to be spending, then we can start to make some small little tweaks along the way. Well, let's start taking a look at our two cases then that I wanted to present to you. And like I said, I hope you see yourself in one of these cases and you can actually start to utilize them a lot more. Now, in both cases, the spouses were born in 1963. They were retired at age 60, and they're expected to live to about age 95. And we assume that each partner is delaying their Social Security until age 70. Now, the only difference between these two couples is the household wealth. So one has 4.5 million and the other has 2.5 million in assets. And this is kind of across the board between taxable accounts, tax deferred accounts, and tax free accounts. Now, in both of these cases, we use two different levers to maximize the after-tax value of their portfolios and the withdrawal strategies that are there and the locations of those strategies. Like I said, we can be rebalancing it along the way, and we can be looking at all the different types of taxes that are there. Now, this withdrawal strategy, the dynamic withdrawal strategy, adds more value than those other strategies that we talked through just because of how we're changing things along the way. Case number one, we are going to be taking a look at that $4.5 million portfolio and how this couple can actually be making changes that are going to be beneficial when it comes to their income. Okay, so again, when we compare the conventional wisdom and some of those strategies and the rebalancing, we're going to really be talking about this multi-phase strategy. Now, there's a lot of charts and graphs we can be going to, but we can be adding over $1 million in after-tax income and after-tax wealth by making some of these different changes that we're starting to see. So at the household level, if we make some rebalancing, if we add in a lot of different elements to where the assets are going, we can create an additional almost $500,000 of after-tax money. So if we take a look at some of those original type of withdrawal strategies, and then we just adjust for how we're taking the assets out on a basis, we can add almost $1.5 million on top of what they already have, just because of we're trying to mitigate taxes. Now, that's really coming back down to the so what of this strategy, that yes, we can actually be helping them to gain more money and to really save money from going there. But there's a lot of different phases when it comes to your withdrawal strategy and different tax brackets like we had talked about. So that multi-phase withdrawal strategy, it added different elements to it. And we can have over $300,000 saved in taxes just by making some of these changes. Well, then again, if we start to look at all the different assets that go behind it, well, then we can add into another about $400,000. So that comes up with $800,000 of savings. So those two types of changes that we can make, whether it was withdrawing from the one type of systems that were realistically speaking just at proportional level, or then we're taking a look at the multi-asset approach, all of those do help. But when we take a look at which one's going to outperform, we start to look at the withdrawals and the conventional level wisdom that is out there is looking at these withdrawals and these strategies, and really the thresholds of all the spikes of marginal tax brackets that are out there, Social Security, Medicare, all of these different things, required minimum distributions, and we can start to change things around. Making withdrawals from your taxable, your tax deferred accounts, your Roth accounts will actually start to make your average tax bracket be about 23% better than the conventional wisdom strategy, but is far from optimized. That is what we're talking about here. I'm throwing out so many numbers, I'm throwing out so many things, but we need to optimize it. And yes, we're 23% better here. Yes, we've added $1.5 million there with some of these strategies, which is really good. But the tax deferred accounts, the withdrawal strategies, the Roth conversions that we have, when we fill those buckets to the 24% bracket, and we can perform slightly better. And now we can be using the average rates for the tax brackets. Again, one of those strategies we had talked about, and planning for the different horizons of your income. There will be opportunities to change how you can be withdrawing from your overall plans. There's going to be great opportunities of how you're going to be changing your taxes in the future, in those thresholds. And so if we're converting in a 24% bracket right now, maybe we are actually going to be going up to a 32% bracket in the future. Or with the reversion of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act in 2026, maybe they're even going higher for you. So even though we are in a lower bracket today, and we may actually be in a higher bracket tomorrow, which makes us such a unique strategy as to how to make sure that we have more money set aside in tax-free buckets to save you money in the future, especially with the required minimum distributions. Okay, well, let's talk about those required minimum distributions, because the Secure Act really postponed that until 73 starting in 2023, or 75 starting in 2033. So what that means is that we can postpone those required minimum distributions to help with the Roth conversions more. So again, we have added more money just by making some slight changes onto the different types of ways we're taking from there in the dynamic approach, the multi-asset approach. Well, let's take a look at that second case study then. And when we take a look at the $2.25 million portfolio, again, everything else is the same. Well, we look at the conventional wisdom versus the withdrawal strategy here. And when we take a look at adding in the withdrawal strategy, it adds in about $800,000 of extra, what we call tax alpha or tax savings. So then we can add in another about $250,000 with how we can rebalance the accounts so that we're having assets in the appropriate places. So that's about $1 million extra just by employing this strategy. Well, again, great opportunities for you to make the changes, and it's working with where the taxes are coming from and how we can be paying those taxes in lower brackets today than where we are in the future. And when we change that on a yearly basis, now we can be looking at your overall income, and we can be making some different changes of where we're going to be drawing from as well. So where does that leave us? Because we've talked about those two different strategies, and we've added in about $1.5 million or $1 million of extra income just by looking at these two different types of income strategies for these couples. But again, where does that leave us? Well, in both cases, the dynamic withdrawal phase and the multi phase withdrawal strategies that we were talking about add between $800 to $1 million extra in after-tax money that we can be used for income just because of those Roth conversions. Now that's over the conventional wisdom theory that we talked about, taken from the taxable accounts, the tax deferred accounts, and the tax free account strategies. So yes, we are comparing against that, but what we're also seeing is that it really does add value. And then when we add in the different types of assets, the different strategies there, we can add in anywhere between $250,000 to almost $500,000 of different tax savings. So the framework is there, and it's really coming back down to taking a look at where you are every single year on the tax front. And the lower the tax brackets are for you in those years, the more we can be putting away into the Roth conversions for the future. And that alone is how we can really start to make some great adjustments to your overall wealth plan. Well, again, that's something that you should be talking with your tax professionals about, and we can also be working to help you when it comes to how to do this. So if you need help with the strategies and putting the basically paper to pen, again, you should be talking with your tax professional about all of these changes. But as you need help just conceptualizing this more and more and how you can be saving money in income taxes with your overall withdrawals, we'd be happy to help. And you can actually click the link below this video and you can set up a one-on-one consultation where we will actually walk through the different dynamics of where you're at today, where you want to go in the future, and then take a look at those withdrawal strategies that's going to be right and appropriate for you and for where you're at with the tax brackets. For more tips and tricks on withdrawal strategies and your overall wealth plan, click on this video right here.